All systems go. Cleared for takeoff. What's up, everyone? Tyler Tamboline here, a.k.a. ToeTagginTambo. We're back for another edition of the Week 4 review show here on the SHIPIT Nation YouTube station. Got my guy Nades with me as always, and this week, special guest Tyler from LionStar. He's going to join us again. If you're just joining us, do us a favor on the way in. Hit that like button. Hit the subscribe, too. We're almost getting to 3.5, going to 4K. It's the tour for 4. When we get to 4,000, we are going to be giving away a 6-month bundle to ShipItNation.com. As always, want to remind you guys, this show is brought to you and presented by LionStar. You can go to ShipItNation.com/LionStar app. Get in there. Tons of great value, but I'm going to let Tyler talk about it. Tyler, I'll let you come in here first. We've spent some time on this last time you were on going through it, but there's a lot of other stuff going on over on LionStar. We talked a little bit pre-show about the Props AI. It's a new tool that you guys have. They were talking about the quarterback wide receiver matchup sheet, the matchup sheets for the running backs, all these other things. I'll bring you in, man. How you doing this week? And then talk to us a little bit more about LionStar in general.
Good, man. Thanks for having me again. It's always a fun show and happy to come on. So LionStar in general, you know, we have the website, we have the apps, but then there's just a ton of different tools that we have for DFS and prop betting. We have that Props AI tool, the matchups tab that you're looking at right now really just gives you, you know, who the best plays are based on the matchup and the history of that matchup as far as how every team has done against it. So it's a really good way to, you know, quickly kind of pick out some of the best plays. Obviously, this isn't taking, you know, salary in consideration there. It's all just performance based, but it's a nice, easy way to kind of click through, look at some stats. If you clicked on each player, it'll, you know, bring a little drop down of what everybody did, or click on that player specifically and you can see his whole history. You know, so it's just a nice, easy way to look at all the data that you need for a given slate and for a given player.
Yeah, I like that one. Show it off here too. Also had it up before, but just to pull it back over, I think, you know, we were looking at this too with the Props AI tool where you can go in and see. Again, I don't think it might not be fully updated yet for today, but like as of yesterday when I was looking at it, you could see it against what you guys had things projected at versus what the market, the props market had these at. And then you could really find your plus EV spots to get in based on trusting that and moving it over. So we'll be looking at more of that stuff in the future and trying to see anything else you wanted to talk about before we get into this perfect lineup. It was a wild Sunday yesterday, and the perfect lineup is one of the more wild we've seen all season, but I'll let you go if there's anything else you wanted to add on before we hop in.
I'll just add on that the Prop AI tool is great. It's been really good as far as, you know, we have it so you can search our projections, consensus projections, and then you can search by whatever sports book you're trying to bet on and whatnot. So really use it to attack the markets you are best at.
Yeah, and just one more time for you guys, if you want to check this stuff out, there's a lot over there. It is one of the better values out there. That's why we partnered with LionStar. It complements our stuff very well. It's different things, certain items, tools that we don't have. You can get in there really low price. Go over to LionStar. You can use ShipItNation.com/LionStar app, the link. That'll get you guys over there and you'll be able to see all the promos that they have going on. Let's go to this perfect lineup, though, Nades. First off, I'll bring you in, man. How was your Week 4 thoughts, overview on what you saw happen on the Sunday? As I always say, it wasn't the best Week 4 for you so far. We still have Monday Night Football. There's going to be a lot of action. We'll have you guys covered over at ShipItNation.com, but I'll bring you in, Nades. How was your Week 4 so far?
It was looking horrible to start, even despite some of the good plays. But when you sort by value in your optimizer based on our tools, our partner over here at the Solver as well, and you see the top 4 guys, top 4 values all crush, it's pretty tough, right? Because you need to obviously have those guys and have the right pieces around them. I did sneak into some min cashes late that got me most of my money back, so that's never a complaint. When a week like this does happen, right? We look at the perfect lineup, spend one of the most craziest lineups. Anytime a perfect lineup's up near 300, you know how the Sunday went. in terms of value smash and random stuff happening. Christian McCaffrey just continues to dust everyone that he goes against. And we knew that was going to happen right last year. Once that trade, he's going to the best offensive running scheme offense in the league for the past how many years. And you put the best running back behind that, you know, he's going to crush. But overall, it was fine to get some back. Had some close calls last night, 1v1 away from the chop, 100K chop in the DraftKings $15. But hey, week's not over yet. We got tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one tonight. We can talk about this one here first. So this is the perfect lineup. Again, over at our partner with Line Star, you guys can see this. It's right there. Perfect LU. You click that. You can go down and see. You can go historical, too. That's a nice thing about it. You can break this back and go as far as you want to go see other perfect lineups and then check it out from there. But just to break this one down, so the main 12-game slate, Dobbs, it actually has some correlation. It's just wild stuff. But like Dobbs, Wilson with Christian McCaffrey, you got a couple guys from that Chicago squad that just crushed with DJ Moore and Cole Kmet. You had A.J. Brown go off in his spot. Achane had another big game. Talked about that on the Mayo show on Friday. I was saying he didn't have to do what he did last week. He could just come out and do this, and it would be just fine. He did it again. Interesting stuff for me, Tyler, is like we didn't see, like you don't see Diggs on here. He crushed.
Mm-hmm.
Still had a really good day. Like there was other guys that crushed. They just don't make the perfect lineup. But again, we'll talk about the winning lineups after. We just like to look at this and go over it so far. We see again this last week, we saw it with last week it was Mostert and Tyreek Hill. This week we're seeing it with wide receiver and tight end, but Moore and Kmet. It's just a product of the price. Again, I'm sure there's other ways to shake this down and get very close to this score that fits Fields in here, and then other guys move up or down, and you maybe come up just short, but still end up winning some of these contests we'll talk about after. But Tyler, I'll bring you in your thoughts on this week 4 perfect lineup.
Yeah, I mean, seeing Dobbs there is absolutely surprising, but when you go, throw a couple touchdowns, you add in some rushing yards, it can definitely happen when you're minimum salary. The thing that's so wild to me is Devon Achane. He only had 11 touches, went for almost 120 yards or something like that, and 2 touchdowns, wild efficiency. But I guess that's something we should probably get used to on that Miami offense. It's just hard to click that button when that's only, the only work he's getting as a running back.
Yeah, and it is tough. Like you said, the efficiency is obviously not likely to hold up, but the main thing was with the total and on this slate. That's another interesting note. Just a quick takeaway from me was like, obviously this had the big total. It didn't really get the ownership that you would expect. And we'll look at that when we see some of these winning lineups later. If you went with the Josh Allen, the Diggs, even if you could have got away, I know Kmet smashed and certain other guys did well there, but if you had one of Kincaid or Knox in there, you might have been able to get away with it as long as you got all the other pieces right, where you were landing a lot on who else is in this lineup. Kieran Williams is not in this lineup, had a huge day. So there was lots of ways to shake this out and still get close to this score. This obviously just shows you the perfect lineup, the most optimal. So to break that down. But the other thing was too, like Herbert crushed, but you see Moore and Kmet. You had all kinds of different things happening that just not a lot of people, like Dobbs wasn't popular. Achane wasn't popular. Brown wasn't. Most people weren't going to Moore, Kmet. Maybe within those stacks they were popular, but not on their own. More people were playing Tank Dell or other guys from like the Chargers or something of the backups with Johnston and that. No Nakua in this lineup. Wilson, we'll see. He was on one of the winning lineups we'll get to in a second. I said earlier, maybe somebody just made that and said Marquise Brown is questionable, but even if he comes back and plays, he could still be banged up. I mean, not like Wilson wasn't seeing opportunities, so he still kind of made sense at that $3,500 price tag. And then, of course, the week after everybody plays them at $4,400 and they get stomped to do nothing at that price tag, they come out and smash at $4,000. The Cowboys at 100 less than the Eagles, who were popular there, and then at a lot more than the popular $2,800 Browns and the $2,500 Panthers. The Panthers did do well, but the Browns thing was kind of interesting. Nades, I'll go to you on this, then we'll get to some of these winning lineups. But the Browns were very popular, and then I know it was like known all week about the Watson stuff and like could go that way. But when just before the slate, that's why you got to be able to adapt and go with this. The best move was actually just to pivot over to the Ravens, getting away from the obvious of needing the Cowboys to be optimal or something like that. My point just saying it's always, we see these opposite Ds, but we had a real reason to go to the opposite D, right? Cleveland D had been incredible, but now they face Lamar Jackson on top of the fact that they've got their backup quarterback in there with DTR. So I don't know. What's your thoughts on the defenses, and then we'll move on to some of these winning lineups.
First, my thoughts are DraftKings. Can we just try 1 week with no defense here? I know it's part of the game. I know it's part of the roster here, but man, I mean, how many times can you get the stone nuts and not have the nut defense and be 20 points shy of shipping the tournament because the defense goes out there post 27, post 36, like the Bills, whatever. But no, that's a whole story for another time. I actually did flip to the Ravens defense in quite a bit of my builds once that news did come out, right? It's a rookie. Ravens defense takes chances. They can get after a rookie. And anytime a rookie's getting thrown in 2 hours before game time, you have to, I mean, it's the NFL, right? Like, they weren't that much more expensive. I knew everybody was going on the Cleveland side and the Eagles. I mean, when you just go into the optimizer, like I just did right now, based on our results, because you can back test it with whatever our optimizer, obviously we use a solver over here. When you hit optimize, the Eagles hit almost every one of the teams, obviously, because of their projection. They had almost a 12 projection at 4,100. They're going to hit almost all your teams. So obviously the Cowboys right there, right? You get the flop leg built in. And they had a good matchup too. You know how the Cowboys with Micah Parsons, I mean, they just got an elite defense, even without no Diggs. So I did actually flip to the Ravens in quite a bit of builds. That's why you have to be following these notes all season or all week, and especially leading up to game time, right? Because you know where everyone's plugging in that Cleveland D, and a lot of people lock their teams in and go out, go to friends, go to parties, do whatever they're doing, getting ready for kickoff, and have their lineups locked in already. So that's one note. One thing I did want to call about this Wilson thing, just to highlight some of Line Star's tools here. If you actually go back to the matchup sheet and you click on all, Mr. Wilson shows up as the number 1 overall matchup, wide receiver 3s here against San Fran, which is something interesting to see. Just a little plug there for your tools over there, Tyler, as well at Line Star. It's just interesting to see Wilson's up there, Stafford's up there, obviously Chase is up there, Woods is up there. Some of the guys didn't get there, but it was interesting to see Michael Wilson up there at the top, number 1 overall matchup on the board.
Yeah, go ahead, Tyler. Do you have anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, Wilson there is definitely surprising. However, he was running the routes, he was getting the snaps, and things just happened to fall his way in a good matchup, like you said. So, you know, while it's a wild play and 0.3% owned, you know, it got it done and got there.
Yeah, I was trying to see it. He'd been involved, though, before, too. That's why I said, like, it was obviously a little bit of a boom bust, but in these types of tournaments, there's something to be said for that as well. And we'll talk more. There's some really interesting tidbits in this.
So, I mean, he's played.
Yeah, go ahead.
He played 90% of the snaps week 1, 43 in week 2. But last week he played almost 70, and then he played 70% of the snaps this week, even with Marquise Brown playing over 90% of the snaps. So, like, he is on the field. Like, he's out snapping. Like, he's right there with Rondo Moore. Like, they're running a lot of 3 wide receiver sets. So he's on the field. So, I mean, at that value price point, as a correlated, like, obviously, right, this is a perfect lineup. But if you were to build something similar to that, it is a correlated lineup with the quarterback and McCaffrey. So,
yeah, we'll stay on
one
it.
of the things.
Yeah, go ahead, Tyler.
Sorry, that I want to add there is just that Michael Wilson coming in had only had 9 targets on the year, and he got 7 this week. So, you know, the matchup was definitely in his favor. He was getting targeted there, but it's pretty wild to have that big of a step up where, you know, we're in week 4 and you almost double your target count.
Yeah, and I think, too, that was also the conversation yesterday around DJ Moore. He'd had like 11 catches on the year so far and had 7 early on in that one. So it just depends on the game flow. It depends on the quarterback. That was my thing all week when people kept saying, oh, and this, people know I talked about this. All my shows are free. So it was mentioned plenty of times where they're saying, oh, you know, I don't understand this Fields thing. Like they're not Miami. They're not going to put up 70. We know that. No one was expecting. They don't need to put up 70 at those price tags to smash. It was a team that just did have 70 dropped on them, though. So there was going to be potential for this. And in the end, it was like Fields still had a really good day. Herbert, who's in this winning lineup that we're about to get to, was there. Going back to the perfect lineup, it had Moore and Kmet. There was ways to shake that around. It was just a good spot all around, and that's when you wanted to hop on. I wasn't continuously playing this guy from the start of the season. I didn't play Fields once leading up to last week, but this was the week that it made sense. So I hopped in. My lineups, unfortunately, ended up having Javonte Williams in them, and that was an injury. The backup gets there, McLaughlin instead, but still, that's the way it goes. Let's dive in. This is the $20 Millie Maker yesterday. Michael T. This is the first interesting thing. Single bullet from Michael T. 5 of the top 6 actually only used one lineup, or in the case of Genosis 420024, they used 2. But we'll talk more about the machine BRF. They were the only one to use 50 in the top 6, so a bigger number. But let's go back to the leaderboard. Let's look at the winner here, Nades. Michael T. 0717, however you want to say it, had a bunch of rules or trends that we see on this tool. So just to break it down, it was Josh Allen to Stephon Diggs. We had the secondary stack of McCaffrey and Wilson. We had another secondary stack of Nico Collins and Pat Freiermuth. Then we had Herbert. We had Thielen. And then the Chargers D was another good one to flip to, as Aiden O'Connell at 4K made a lot of sense and did a lot for your lineups, really popped in projections, things like that. So switching over and finding that $300 from someone like the Browns to move up, this was another, what I thought, a sharper play. Again, didn't get to the 27 that the Cowboys had, but they also didn't cost 4K, and it was really low owned and made sense. Overall, pretty low ownership here for Michael T. Nades, your first thoughts on this lineup, the winning $20 Millie Maker lineup to get the job done for a cool $1 million.
My first thoughts are, number one, he flipped the build, not only playing the Chargers defense against a chalk 4K quarterback, but he went up to the top and played Josh Allen, right? He got Josh Allen at 6%, right? You don't get Josh Allen that low owned too often here in a game where, Miami plays up, right? They just dropped 70 points, obviously against a different team. They want to they want to throw the ball, air the ball out. They got Waddle, they got Hill, they got the double-headed monster there in the backfield with Achane and Mostert there. So he flipped the build and he said, oh, look, I'm not playing the 4K value quarterback that's popping, has, almost a 4 point something value rating in projections. I'm going to play the Chargers defense against that because I don't got that. I'm going to go all the way up to the top, get Josh Allen, pair him with his number one receiver who he looks to all the time in Stephon Diggs. You also get Diggs lower owned there because people are playing the chases, the Devontae Adams right there at $100 cheaper. So it's a little bit there. He's got the Khalil Herbert, which I know you talked about quite a bit, the best matchup on the board for running backs. Everyone's like, oh, Roschon Johnson. Well, Roschon Johnson got all the work in the last couple of games is because the Bears have been dusted, right? He's their guy. But if they're in the game and they're in competitive games, Khalil Herbert is their guy, right? So everyone was talking about Roschon Johnson. Khalil Herbert, I believe, was $200 cheaper than Roschon. Roschon was $4,900, I think. Herbert was $4,700. And it's the number one running back there in the best matchup on the board for running backs against Denver. Denver can't stop anyone, obviously. So that was a great play there. Nico Collins, right? Everyone's talking Tank Dell. Nico Collins has still been a target monster there in Houston, and the red zone guy, obviously, did you get a little touchdown variance there, him catching 2 touchdowns? Yeah, but that's what you do. Had the value play there in Thielen, the chalkiest piece in the lineup there, just as, hey, it probably just fit. And the Pat Freiermuth, right? Pat Freiermuth with that secondary correlated stack there. He took the 2 favorite most value plays there from Houston, Pittsburgh, correlated them together instead of just playing the chalk as a one-off there because he knew he had lower ownership there with the Josh Allen build, the Chargers flip the script build, and the Herbert. So overall, it's a very well-built lineup, and he's $1 million richer with a single bullet. Incredible stuff.
Yeah, and I'll come to you in a second, Tyler. One thing I want to say quickly is I think a lot of people see this. I personally thought Freiermuth, great cash play. It made sense. Still no Deontay Johnson. There's all those factors going up against Houston, all these other things you could talk about. In this build, he could have easily fit Knox was, I think, 32, Kincaid 31, and just had a double stack with Josh Allen. But I do like that even taking on this ownership, the way to take it down a little bit and just take it and shorten it was to add Nico Collins as the secondary stack. So you get a secondary stack and you cut into this play a little bit in a vacuum on its own. I didn't love this play sort of as a one-off at this ownership at a position where usually busts as a time, it almost all the time does, but in this case it did. And so be it, didn't matter for $1 million, but just to show it off. That's one spot. Thielen, fine. Just had enough spots to go. He was already so different in all these other places that I don't really have a problem with any of that. I thought the build was pretty good overall. Tyler, what's your thoughts on this one before we keep going with some of these others?
Yeah, it's definitely a good build. He just took some different shots that just ended up working out for him. Like Khalil Herbert his high was 9 carries up until this game, and then he got 18. You know, the same, we talked about Michael Wilson being in that same situation, but he had the correlation there, and that went his way. The other thing was that Nico Collins and Pat Freiermuth play. That Houston Steelers game was one of the fastest paced games on the slate coming into this week. So I understand getting there and trying to get some correlation. Pat Freiermuth didn't get there. You know, Pickett got hurt. Definitely didn't help. But I understand kind of why he picked his players and whatnot. And the build absolutely makes sense. It's just, you know, surprising that it got there with such swings and all of them coming through in a single bullet.
Yeah, and another quick note too is that we talk about this all the time on certain shows that we do and different things here at SHIPIT Nation, my show that I do with Mayo, where we break down these lineups and look at them. But he did try and get a lot of pieces, but the only one he couldn't get to, I guess he sort of substituted in Pittsburgh, Houston. He didn't have any of the Rams Indy game, which had a lot of nice pieces. Obviously, Kieran Williams was in there, Nakua. They still had injury stuff with Cup still being out over there. And then you've got the Indy side with Richardson back. Like, I thought there was a lot of ways that you could go there with Moss or Pittman or Downs or any of those guys. But he did have Buffalo, Miami pieces. He said, I'm getting to that Denver, Chicago. It had like a 46-47 in the best matchup, which was running back against them the week before, where they literally went for 8 touchdowns or whatever and almost 100 fantasy points between Achane and Mostert. So I see that one. San Francisco, huge team total. I guess he didn't have Philly, but then even look, this is another way. I talk about this all the time. A lot of people going to the Vegas LAC game. If you're not going to be able to get those pieces in your lineup, doesn't hurt to just say, I'll take the defense as a way to shut that thing down and say, if I'm not going there, let me go against it instead. So I think there was still some very well thought out pieces here and a good concept and idea. I will take this one. I forget. It's not my credit. I just curate it. But if you guys follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at ToeTagginTambo, the Khalil Herbert tidbit was in there. If you thought that Denver and Chicago was going to stay close, it was very clear it was going to be a Herbert game on the short sample that we have, but it was a very staggering number of how the carries had went. And a lot of the Roschon Johnson stuff was from blowouts or being down. And that's, we're only 4 weeks into the season. People say, oh, I want to get on this rookie still earlier. I want to do that. Sometimes the case is already there sitting right in front of your eyes. So if you thought this was going to be close, that was in the tidbits this week. Nades, any final thoughts on this one before I move on?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think he didn't have, number one, I think he probably came in here and said, I'm playing Christian McCaffrey and I'm flipping the build, playing Josh Allen and Diggs. So you run out of salary quick, right? When you got 8,200, 9,200, and 8,100 right there. So that's why I don't think he had the availability to go to that Rams that Rams game there. So I do like that. And the defense piece, I think, is a good play. It's interesting note the Michael Wilson thing. Yeah, he could have easily played Josh Downs, right, to get a piece of that Indy game. But Josh Downs was projecting for quite a bit of ownership coming in at 3,500 at the same price point as Michael Wilson there. So maybe he saw that as well. Obviously, Josh Downs came in lower owned as the after lock, but he was projected pretty high up there at 3,500 because he was getting the targets. Everyone wanted to go to that game already. He's like, he could have probably played that. And he's like, well, why don't I just play Wilson, who's playing the snaps? It's a correlated stack there, and maybe it is him. Maybe Marquise Brown does sit, right? And he gets extra run there with the McCaffrey mini stack there.
Yeah, that's my key. The last thing is it's also an if this, then that. Like, that's what you're playing for. Like, this guy gets 51 points. You're not even expecting that from CFC. You're expecting a big game, paying 9,200 for him. But when the news came out, not only was Jennings out, which is just another mouth to feed. Who cares? They got, Debo's in, fine. But when there's no Elijah Mitchell, it's like this should just be even more of an opportunity. The matchup's good. The points are strong. You're hoping for like 30 points here for that price, and anything else is gravy on top. He ends up getting 51. But if this and this 51 points, I actually prefer this. And just why throw Downs in there just to throw him in? Like, who cares? So I actually like that better. And like you said, he was even getting that stuff beforehand. Yeah, our guy Go Collect, he had this one I wanted to bring up first. Put so much salary into that. That just shows that once you do that, you don't have to go extremely off the board. Like, he played a good spot in Khalil Herbert. He played guys like Collins and Freiermuth and Thielen, who always have been good PPR plays on DraftKings, and even correlated in Collins and Freiermuth and cut that ownership down a little bit when you go back and forth on it. When you're not getting to that game, you play the D. So enough on this one. that should break it down. I want to give a quick shout out to our guy, Justin Freeman. He made a run at it. I think he said he was boxed out from Run the Sims. He said, he could only get the third, but what was it? Yeah, same thing at the end. Remember, the Chargers got that pick, and they should have went for it. The way the clock was setting up, that ball could go back to the Raiders. So I don't know why he didn't just take off. It was only Aiden O'Connell he had to beat, but that Chargers D cost him, I think he said 50,000 is what it would have got him. So it cost him 40K. Sorry, it's the way it goes sometimes, but nice build there. He had a similar setup. He had Allen, he had McCaffrey, he had Diggs, he had Thielen, he had Kincaid. He went double tight end. But so this build was very similar to the Millie Maker winner. He had Kieran Williams in there. Berrios, I saw a lot of sharper players use this play yesterday. I honestly think it was just as a way to run it back. Like obviously with Hill and Waddle and with Mostert and Achane and all these other situational things. Again, lots of other ways. He could have easily plugged in Wilson here. This is results oriented. Don't get me wrong. Justin's extremely sharp. Obviously, one of the better players out there. Just saying it though, like this is another spot. 26 would have given him what? Almost 10 more. So 251 would have probably been fourth again. So either way, that's results oriented. This fit the stack. It was the run back, the 3-1. So I get it. Other players played it. I just didn't know why people were on Berrios when we knew Waddle was good to go, Tyreek Hill, all those other options. Nades, any thoughts on that one?
It's at the 3,600 price point where people are playing Palmer at 4K, right? People, like I said, Josh Downs was projected. Calvin Austin was in that same kind of range, right? Two other games that people wanted to go to at similar price points. And hey, I'm not playing those games. I'm in on this Miami Buffalo game, which obviously was the right game to be on. It went absolutely crazy on the Buffalo side for sure. So getting off of that, throwing a low one piece in there. And we know Berrios has been involved in the offense before. I get it. There's a lot of mouths to feed there, but just kind of made sense and was different from where the projected ownership was going in that price point.
Yeah, and I do love this too. Just a note I always pick out. Like, remember, Tyreek Hill, the same price as Christian McCaffrey. So when he knows, I like McCaffrey way more yesterday, as did many people. I mean, the ownership shows it. But my point would be, if you're not getting him in there and you have Diggs, and you're not paying up for a Tyreek, it is a way to just get cheap there. I just also thought myself, and this is the other way of results oriented, it wouldn't have worked out. But I know when Mayo and I were setting up a lot of lineups and things that popped in the projections, so maybe this was his thought. A lot of people playing Kieran Williams here are playing Josh Downs here for $100 less to get that secondary in. And then why run it back when you have to pick between Hill, Mostert, Achane, and Waddle? It's really tough to get it right. So why not just do something like that? But he just said, whatever, I'm going to actually run it back with another guy there. So shout out to Justin. Good run at the Millie. And then the last guy I want to talk about in the $20 is the Machine BRF. I brought him up earlier. So he's the only one in the top 6 that had 50 lineups. More on that in a second. But he came in 5th for 30K. This is the lineup. But let's flip over and look at where this lineup was worth a lot more, because the Machine BRF threw only 3 lineups into the 555 Millie Maker. So just to see it, picked 3 of 50 and ended up picking the absolute nuts within those 3. So the Machine BRF with the same lineup that came in, whatever it was over there, 5th for 30K, ends up shipping the 555 Millie Maker, picked 3 of their 50 to take it down. The lineup, Tyler, was Justin Fields, DJ Moore. Then it had Kieran Williams, Jerome Ford, Nico Collins, Marquise Brown, Logan Thomas, Christian McCaffrey, and Dallas defense. Give me your thoughts on the lineup. And then how do you think he picked this one? Because it's very random. One of the 3 that they picked to go into the higher stakes tournament with the $1 million up top on a 555 buy-in.
Yeah, this is definitely an interesting one, and he absolutely crushed BK Ryder with it.
Yes.
Pretty significant difference there. But yeah, I mean, it's an interesting build. I did see that the 3 that he picked, all 3 had Justin Fields and DJ Moore. So he's definitely hyper targeting, that game specifically. We know that Kyron Williams and Indy, the Rams versus Indy, was one of the faster paced games. Same with Houston game. So all those pieces made some sense, and you had correlation with Marquise and CMC. The one, real weird one is throwing in Logan Thomas there, but he did have a very good matchup in that spot. Pretty wild lineup though, going back to Jerome Ford too, when even last week he wasn't getting, a significant portion of the workload there, but it got it done.
Yeah, it's wild because like you said, some of this stuff too, like Brown was questionable leading up. Logan Thomas, I think wasn't this his first week back? Like I think he'd missed a week, or maybe he came back last week, but it was before that. But just again, completely off the board play there with no, it wasn't like it had AJ Brown. And I said, we're not criticizing, he won the $1 million. I like a lot of things the machine BRF did. If we can go back for a second just to bring it up, we said picked out of his 50 lineups, here were their exposures at quarterback: Fields, Stroud, Richardson, Stafford, a little bit of a few different angles on the 50, still very much leaning towards Fields. But I do love this, that like you said, when moving over, went all in on Fields, right? Like if you go look here and see, you can go to lineups. It was Justin Fields. This is the winning lineup. Fields more again, 177. Fields more again, 161. A lot of the similarities, like Logan Thomas, Christian McCaffrey, Cleveland defense and Thielen, the same as down here, Cleveland defense and Thielen. And then up here, Christian McCaffrey, Logan Thomas, and some of the same. I think Kieran Williams was in 2 of the 3 as well. So one thing I will say, I definitely like that they went to their conviction. 34% on their 50 lineups was Justin Fields lineups. Let me go with that conviction in the main, not try and pick 1, 1, and 1. Just said I'm going to go with the guy I believe in most. If it is a Fields day, I'm going to have 3 bullets that can get me up to the top. And you can see the disparity. I just showed you it, but 244, 177, and 161. Like it was the outlier lineup of the Fields lineups that got to the top. By the way, you mentioned just beat out BK Ryder by almost 20 points, but shout out to BK Ryder, who obviously everyone knows one of the best players in the entire world, all sports, but almost back-to-back Millie makers. BK Ryder won the big 44-44 we looked at last week for $1 million, and now comes back and finishes second in the big tournament as well. So congrats to him. But just looking at this lineup again, Nades, your thoughts on this one? Like Fields, Moore, what else? Like, I don't know. I guess that's where the rest is kind of just like plug and play and randomly just hit on the exact nut spots. Like Nico, Kieran Williams, fine, most popular version, but Nico, Christian McCaffrey, Dallas defense, all the scramble together of, sort of the best plays in there. Any other thoughts from you on this one, Nate?
Yeah, so I'm going to hit on the Logan Thomas play real quick because I actually think that's a pretty sharp play. I had a decent amount of Logan Thomas myself, and if you look back at the tight end, right? You had Pat Freiermuth projected to be highest owned. I mean, he was 3,400, right? So you're cheaper than that. And Chigo Kongwu, same price point, 3,100, was also projected to be very high owned. And if you look at our SHIPIT Nation tools over here, our DVP rankings, which are new to this site, we have an advanced version coming. If you filter by tight end, Eagles is the second best matchup in the board all season long against tight ends. And not only that, the Eagles defense was the number 1 projected defense to pop in there. So he's playing Logan Thomas because he's not playing the Eagles defense. He's not playing the Eagles defense. Who's $100 cheaper? The Dallas defense. So I actually think that's a very, very sharp move. And I had quite a bit of Logan Thomas. So if you filter right there, there's the Eagles, 31 in the league against tight ends over the first 3 weeks. I think that's a very good play. And then he had the money there to go right to the Dallas defense as a pivot and saying, hey, Dallas defense is going to outscore the Eagles, who are popping in projections, projected to be the highest owned there in that Washington game. I'm not playing them. Give me a piece of the Washington offense that has averaged 5.5 targets per game. Obviously, there's an outlier in there with a 10-target first game. Missed last week against Buffalo, but coming back, he's part of that offense, and he's just 3,100 in the same range that all the chalk is going at tight end. So I think that's a very sharp move there. Marquise Brown is getting a ton of targets there in Arizona. Paired him with McCaffrey as a secondary correlated stack there. I like that. Nico Collins, again, off the Tank Dell for a little bit more expensive. Tank Dell, 4,600, I think he was. It's been the Tank Dell show. He went to Nico Collins, right, and just said, I'm going to go back to Nico Collins. He's been involved in the offense. He's a touchdown guy, red zone guy, like that. The single stack with Justin Fields, I don't hate, right, because you're just saying, hey, Chicago's been in shambles, right? Their front office, their management, everyone's under kind of the radar to get this going on. They traded for DJ Moore. They need to get this guy more involved. He's starting to trend up a little bit more. And Justin Fields can also run, so you don't need to overstack it there. So they don't hate it. Just kind of fit in Kyren Williams. And then the Jerome Ford play was, I thought, pretty sharp. Obviously, he didn't get there. But when Deshaun Watson's out and DTR gets announced 2 hours before game time, hour and a half, whatever it is before game time, Jerome Ford's been good. He's a value running back. Maybe they just lean on him more in the run game. So overall, I actually think this lineup is very good. Little less correlated than I typically would have built, but I mean, he definitely went in on the McCaffrey, the Fields, the DJ Moore, Kyren Williams, and kind of just picked his spot and went with it.
Yeah, I guess now that you say it like that, I could give it like an extra point, but like how I look at it, like, again, this is more than fine to me. Fields more is standard stuff. Like that's it, Fields has legs. He's getting there. It's usually on like 100 yards on the ground, maybe runs a couple in. You're not playing Herbert or Roshan or anything like that. Komet always makes sense. Didn't have the money to get there. He could have shaken up the lineup differently. I'm just saying, like, that one makes sense. Kyren Williams, this ownership for a reason. I thought he should have been even higher. This is still his backfield. He was getting, I think, 100% of the snaps. It was like catches, things. He didn't even get catches in this game till later on. So things like that, I understand. The McCaffrey, Marquise Brown secondary stack, if this, then that, I totally understand it. Nico, always a good PPR play. I like when you say the Logan Thomas versus Philly D, therefore Dallas D at $100 less. Like, you can make that make sense. I think the lineups are fine and they know what they're doing. I'm just saying it's more of a random build than what we'll see. And my bigger takeaway is, like, how do you get to these 3 of the 50? That's what I don't know. So just going back to it real quick here.
I want to see how many Fields lineups he had.
Well, no, we already looked at that. That's what we just talked about. He played 30.
No, I mean, oh, okay. Yeah.
We talked, that we played 3. I want to see if there's any other more correlation, though. So Fields to Moore, Pollard with no Dallas D, so no correlation there. No Pittsburgh, Houston. Kyren Williams, fine. Just throw him in. Nothing here. Parham instead of those other guys makes sense. McCaffrey there. Not much in that one. Same thing. This one did have the run back. So this one had Javonte. This one had that was it again too, I think, right? Like, that's it.
He had 32% Logan Thomas at the tight end position, and he had only 8% Eagles defense. So that was his leverage play there. He had actually 20% of Washington defense. So he was kind of fully off of the Eagles side in that game.
Yeah, Logan Thomas 32%. Dallas D 8%. So we talked about when you go back. This was looking on his 50 lineups to see exposures. Moore just goes hand in hand. Really liked. He went with his value plays here. Like, that's the other thing. I want to see quickly too how much Stroud. So Stroud was his next in line quarterback after Fields, and that fits with this, the obvious when you see Collins and Dell. But just I do like to look at that sometimes just to see going back and forth now. Like, on his winning lineup, Kyren Williams, fine, which is across from, part of this game that he was next highest on. The Parham play that he had in some, the Carolina play opposite of Minnesota. With that, he did have Brock Purdy. So I guess a lot of it does still line up there. We'll move to another one in a second. Just want to show it back off what Nades mentioned. So this is part of the tools that you get over at ShipItNation.com. This is the basic version of the DVP rankings. We just launched it in for week 4 so that you would have something. It's for both DraftKings and FanDuel. But starting this week, we will have the advanced version breaking it down by quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end with the actual players and stats against. So that will be there in the menu. Our stack rankings, as always, all of the other content, our projections, ownership, everything that you guys know and expect. I didn't bring it up off the top, but we had a pretty good weekend so far. We did post it out this morning. You can go check it out. See all the winners from Sunday. And then last night in Showdown was another really big night. Thursday night in Showdown was a huge night, but you guys can still get in. Go to ShipItNation.com. You can get in for as low as 19. That gets you a 5-day trial. I just can't stress it enough. The monthly for $69 is the best way to go. If you guys hop in on that, it works out to like $15 a week. It does get you Discord access. You still get all the other stuff the same in the trial. You still get all the same stuff with the monthly, but with the trial, you don't get Discord. You do get Discord when you go over and hop in with the $69 monthly there. So check that out. Let's go back over here. I want to look at BK Ryder's lineup quickly just to see the one that got up to the top. Real quick, let me go back. So he had the 150. He's the only guy anywhere remotely near the top that got his 150 up there. It's also the this lineup here that got to the top, just so you guys see it. So it was Josh Allen, Diggs, Kincaid, another, like I said, sharp player that ran back Berrios. So that makes sense that, you're going to use the run back. He had Thielen as well. He had McCaffrey, Kieran Williams. Palmer was the cheap play there for LAC. Ownership, you can get away with a little bit more in these. Just to note, way less than 100%. 86.8% was the total ownership for the winner. But then the Baltimore D switching sides. And again, in the 555, Baltimore D got up to almost 12%. So many did make that switch at the end. Tyler, I'll go to you on this one. Obviously, we know BK Ryder, extremely sharp player, but your take on this lineup?
Yeah, I mean, he kind of hit all the boxes with correlation, the games to attack. Just didn't quite get there, The Chargers disappointed a little bit. Dalton Kincaid just didn't give enough. Adam Thielen, he would have been boxed out. But then the Berrios play was really the one that kind of differentiated him. And there was probably only 2-3 other people in the tournament that had Berrios.
Yeah, it was 0.1%.
Yeah. So all in all, I mean, it's a good build and a lot of the guys that all of us were targeting and talking about all week. So, and then he did have the Baltimore D in there going against that Cleveland team that didn't have Deshaun Watson. So, I mean, all of his plays were sharp. And like you said, in this type of tournament, you can go a little higher on ownership, but he got different with going Allen Diggs.
Yeah, my thing before I go to you on this one, Naze, is this is just standard stuff. Like I love, like you can just get away with this so easily. Like these are just the two plays that were the best yesterday. You go look it up. It was on my slate plan over on the site. These were the top two guys I was on at running back. It's just simple. If you're going to these two, you got to get different elsewhere. But this is one to show people. Like you don't have to go again. People always looking for all these super diamond in the roughs throughout their lineup, and it's kind of what we saw with this one. But like I said, when you're going Marquise Brown and Logan Thomas and DJ Moore and Jerome Ford, like you're asking for a lot. It got there, but this just goes to show. Well, we mentioned that BK Ryder got beat by almost 20 points. That's the way it goes sometimes, but look at the difference in ownership, and you don't need to separate yourself that much. He has sort of one differentiator, but look, Allen, not that owned on this slate. Diggs, not that owned on this slate. Kincaid, under 10%. Even with the field reacting to the Baltimore defense, it's not like they were 25% owned or something. So again, you just don't have to go as far off the board as you might think. The two better running back plays, highest owned for a good reason. Thielen, really high owned. Palmer, really high owned. But when you start adding in Allen, Diggs, Berrios, and things like that, Nades, you can get away with it, man. Like it doesn't matter. And in a field that's a much smaller size, 6,000 entries as opposed to what was the other $20, 207,000. That's another thing. You don't have to be as perfect. Go ahead, Nate.
Yeah, overall, it's a good build. I mean, if you wanted to do something where, be more correlated, sometimes you can be over correlated too, right? Which can be a mistake. He could have been over correlated and gone Thielen and Madison, right? And he went and took second in this lineup. Obviously, Kyron was the best. Kyron and McCaffrey, two best running back plays, but Madison could have gave you that secondary stack there in that Carolina and Minnesota game for $200 cheaper than Kyron. A little bit lower ownership, obviously less score as well, right? So sometimes over correlation can be big there. But Palmer was obviously one of the best values projected on the board, right? With no Mike Williams there, 4K, he got up to almost 25%. So just kind of fit. And yeah, to your point, right? Sometimes you can play the best plays. It's about not about who you play. It's about how you play them. And obviously he knew he was lower owned and flipped the build with the Josh Allen already. So he can play some of these chalkier pieces, especially knowing that, hey, Braxton Berrios is in that chalk range. He's going to be unowned. That's my differentiator. If he gets there, catches a touchdown, I'm already different and already flipped the build on the Baltimore defense from that Cleveland side as well.
Yeah, you dropped my line, so I got to drop this. It's not who you play, it's how you play them. That's featured in the roster construction segment of the free course that comes with anybody who signs up to SHIPITNation.com. So any membership that you sign up for, even the 5-day trial for $19, you only got 5 days to get it in, but it's 4 hours. So you can do it. You can definitely do it. We talk about the process. We break down roster construction. Hoop, myself, this week past was the anniversary, I should say. Not annual. We'd love for it to happen annually, but Hoop's anniversary of winning the Millie Maker. It shows here on the screenshot. Obviously, I've done well at the King of the Beach. I won my first seat this year in the King of the Beach last night in Showdown, which was a whole segment on that. We talk about the live finals and qualifiers. We review them. A 4-hour course you guys can check out if you like stuff like that. We talk about more roster construction. Last thing, and then we'll move on. I don't need, like, the way this tool shows it, I don't care so much, but like this one says X. This is not something you need standard. This one is obvious.
Right.
People are playing players against their DST. Needing a low-owned player. Max one running back, pretty standard. But the bringbacks, the pass catchers, all these things do pop up often enough. You don't always need them, but just to note, keep looking at things that way. And then the last one, so MJ Chan, 89. This is also featured in the course, talking about contest selection. $3,000 here. And again, everyone will say, oh, it's nice. They have all the money. MJ Chan obviously has a lot of money to be able to do this. When I show you where they won with it at, but they were in $100 King of the Beach satellites that won King of the Beach seats. They were in $470, less than $500. Again, that's not for everybody watching this, but just to say, it wasn't like all the highest stake stuff, but they use this lineup everywhere. And we'll go to it in a second. I'm going to go to it where they actually won with the first spot that I found was the $1,500 Game Changer, right? You can go look at that one here. You don't need as many points to win, but $100K winner. They won live final seats with it, other stuff. Really like this build. And I'll go through it first, Tyler, and then I'll kick it to you. It's much of what we'd seen already, but I just thought this was set up extremely well. So Fields, Komet, DJ Moore, run it back with Mims at 3,900. Then you go Kieran Williams, Zach Moss, Puka Nacua from the same game. Jamar Chase as a differentiator, not going with the money that they had there to go to either Keenan Allen or Devontae Adams and get a piece of that game, just opted to stay away from it completely and then moved over to the Baltimore defense. Tyler, I think this one's set up quite well. Like I said, the ones that he's got X's on here are two things I never care about. Like, you're not really playing. I'm not worried about two running backs in the same game when they both have great roles. Doesn't matter that Moss didn't get there, but they both have great roles. They both can catch passes. They didn't have much behind them to worry about, et cetera, et cetera. And then I just don't care about the RB DST stack. So Tyler, I'll go to you on this one first, but I thought this was a really sharp build.
Yeah, it is a nice build. The one thing I would say here is if Fields is getting there with both Komet and Moore, Denver's going to be putting up points. So this is one of those builds where I might make sure I have a bring back. Just because, oh, sorry, I didn't see Mims there. Yeah. No.
Yeah. I agree with you, and that I think you just made a good point for it. Yeah. But again, not everyone knows what you were going to say there. So now flip it the other way while you're saying it, because I think it's super important, like you said.
Yeah, it's just that Fields, the way he generally gets there is he's doing it on his own. He's just running in. Maybe he brings one pass catcher with him. If he's bringing two, somebody on Denver has to be going off. And in this one, he got different going with Mims. And Mims is also one that a lot of people were talking about all last week, that maybe his snap count should go up. He keeps producing on very limited snap count. Sean Payton said they were going to make personnel changes this week. So everybody thought Mims was going to get a way bigger role. So a low ownership, it makes sense to have him as the bring back. But like you said, all in all, this was, a very sharp build. That Rams-Colts game was one that had a lot of really, really nice plays in it. And he attacked that as well as going with the, Chargers-Broncos.
Yeah, and you could have got to Anthony Richardson as well here. I believe he was 6,700, I think, and then fit it differently that way if you wanted. But I really like that when he went for it this way. Like you said, the first point you made was key. I always talk about that. If a guy like Fields is getting there with two, it's very likely someone's come back. He got it wrong, actually. It wasn't the guy that did the work coming back, but it doesn't matter. It's about the build going in. We don't know the answer sheet like I always talk about. The other thing I liked was guys like Kieran Williams and Nacua, they don't necessarily need Stafford. Like, they can rack up these points on the ground, which is one thing here, getting all those touchdowns on the ground for Williams. And then just from pure PPR points and bonuses, like 9 catches for 150 or whatever, doesn't necessarily mean a huge day for Stafford when Williams runs in a couple touchdowns and Nacua gets only 1. That doesn't mean Stafford comes along for the ride. So I always look at stuff like that as well, but targeting another good game environment. The most interesting thing to me And I love this play still. I love Jamar Chase yesterday. I had him in my slate plan. I thought about, what worked for who I thought was still banged up Burrow, but at least was healthy enough to get Chase the ball the week before. Obviously, Chase's own response with the media after was not well for him and Burrow, but he's just saying, I'm always open, man. Like, I'm always open. Like, throw it to me. It didn't go that way yesterday, but obviously this field adapted to that. But I really thought that was a good spot. I just really think, Nades, the interesting part was no piece of the Vegas Chargers game, but then easily could have afforded Allen, easily could have afforded Adams. It's not about the results. I'm just saying it was interesting to me that said, I'm just going to leave the money, avoid that game altogether, and then not even do something like the defense against or anything. Just, it's fine. It's not something you have to do. I'm just saying that stood out to me as different. Your thoughts, Nades? Anything else you want to talk about here?
Yeah, so I mean, he could have easily dropped Zach Moss down, right, and gone to like Kelly in that game saying, hey, I'm not playing the passing game, going there. Marvin Mims could have easily been Josh Palmer, right, projected way better. He left that and said, no, I'm going to go Marvin Mims. He's a big play guy. If I'm already going in Fields, Kmet, and DJ Moore, I'm expecting the Bears to score a lot of points. Why not play the big play guy like Marvin Mims, right? He doesn't get a ton of work, about 25-30% of the snaps he's been getting, but when he's in there, they're high valued snaps. He's the big play guy, the home run guy, and hey, didn't work out, but he also got off that ownership in that 4K range. Did Josh Downs, the pieces that I already talked about, made it correlated with that stack there. And hey, hopefully I'm getting the Bears right. Maybe it is Mims on the other side, not Sutton, things like that. Can't afford Sutton and that. So overall, very good build. And yeah, sometimes you can't play the best spots on the game. And this just shows you contest selection as well, because he won 100K here and only 3K in the other contest.
Yeah, definitely contest selection, a big one. Our guy, John, that's a great score, John. Congrats to you, 234.1. Had a sweat, but he said, I love the line at the end. And Joshua Kelly. Kelly killed me for the last time. People are definitely done with Joshua Kelly. I had enough of him. It hasn't worked out. Tried him again. Like, I was not even going to play him till yesterday, talking on the show with Title and Hoop, but I kind of got a thought, maybe could just add some of him in. I don't have any of them. He hurt me in some spots. Shout out to another guy. I remember Mark F. over at SHIPIT Nation. He won the 150K on the 2-gamer slate a couple weeks ago, the first one, and he came back here, another good. He's put that money to good use, right into the $1,500 buy-ins, but my guy Mark is sharp. He put together a nice lineup here as well with Aiden O'Connell, Josh Jacobs to shake it up, be a little bit different. Had the run back with Joshua Palmer, and then got some different guys in there that in a field like this, playing a Justin Jefferson that nobody's playing, definitely a way to get different. Just used the 2 best running backs and then fit whatever he could. Made a good run at it, but congrats to MJ Chan 89. And then I'll go to my core lineup, my last one, as I always do, review it at the end. Monday Night Football breakdown show today. Yes, that'll be at 2 p.m. Eastern on the Mayo Media Network. So check that out. Colin, Hoop, Title, and myself every Monday, Thursday. We do it at 2 p.m. Eastern for Monday Night Football and Thursday Night Football, and then Sunday at 9:45 a.m. Eastern on the Mayo Media Network. You have to go under live shows. He's got videos and stuff on there already for his other shows, but that will be there for you guys. And then, yeah, Blake Bone, he's another guy that we just had up there. I didn't go to his lineup. We might catch him on another one. Very sharp player. I didn't get a chance to meet him. He was at the Fantasy Golf World Championship this year, and I didn't see him there, but a very sharp guy. You talk about a great poker player as well. His lineup was an Anthony Richardson. Poor man, Pittman just left him hanging. Pittman and Dell. Wow, two really good guys in there that I thought would do a lot more that did not come through for him, but definitely nice to see him up there again. And then shout out to our guy, NYG fan. He actually sent me that MJ Chan lineup this morning. Him and I were thinking alike, as we usually are, saying that was we saw him everywhere yesterday. And he said that's the beauty of the build, is that he committed to the stand to be different, even with having the cash with that one entry, because many others would have found a way to get to it. And yeah, I love that call, because just one last time, going back to it here before I do mine, not only did we say it here, he spent 49.8. I mentioned it. For 79, you get Keenan Allen. For 8, you get Devontae Adams. But to Nade's point as well, do I have to run it back? No, but to Tyler's point, and what I was thinking as well, I also love that he committed here. If I'm doing this, I'm going with the run back, because that's how I think Fields gets there. So more common to see a guy upgrade here, but definitely a nice pivot in this field off of Palmer. who I'm just trying to see. Palmer, 32% in this field, 49% for Keenan Allen, 18% for Devontae Adams. So he went above Devontae, but again, with the Aiden O'Connell and everything there, I think it would have been more likely that he ends up on 50% owned Allen. And really, he'd already got a lot of his pieces in there. Like, he was already pretty heavily owned. Again, don't need to get as much right in that tournament. Just wanted to bring that up, though, so that you guys could see it. And then I'll land on my last one here. I want to get out of here in the next 5 minutes or so. But my build was, I love McCaffrey and Williams. I loved Allen and Myers. You could take your pick between Johnston or Palmer. Didn't matter to me. But I wanted to go with Herbert or O'Connell. I really wanted to get McCaffrey, though. So I was happy when the O'Connell news come out. I was going to shake it up if I got Brian Hoyer news. So this was tagged on the site under the slate plan at SHIPIT Nation, where I said, waiting and seeing till the morning. Again, didn't work out. Only 155 points, but just to go over the build, O'Connell, Myers, Adams, run it back with Allen. Johnston, I just overcommitted to the game stack. I had McCaffrey with Ertz. I had Kieran Williams, who was one of my favorite plays on the slate, regardless of ownership, and then landed on that Carolina defense going against Minnesota. So, Nades, I'll kick it to you. You know how I build. This was just one of the builds, but this was in the 555 Millie Maker. I'm playing for that game to be the one that goes off, still get pieces from the others. Probably a little on the high ownership side, personally, just looking back. But I wanted these two running backs. Keenan got a little bit out of control. O'Connell, the sharps all adapt at the end of the day once they see a 4K quarterback that makes it all work. Give me your thoughts, Nades, on this one, and then I'll kick it to Tyler before we get out of here.
Yeah, the one thing is you said the stakes, right? Your stakes matter, and you're a little bit higher stakes there, smaller field than some of the big stuff. So you're going in on the game stack, right? You need less things to happen. You need that game. You need to root for points in that game. You have a lot of the main pieces, if not all of the main pieces in there. So that's one thing to note. Obviously, in the larger field stuff like the $20 Millie Maker, things like that, you have to pretty much hit the stone nuts is what we've seen. So sometimes overstacking a game like that doesn't get there. And it's just that's one point I did want to call out, because it does matter. You have to build your contest for the contest that you're entering it for. Typically, obviously, you can throw it in other stuff like that just in case. Obviously, if it smashes, and you just increase your ceiling potential there. But that's one thing you do a great job at, is building for the contest that you're focusing the lineup for.
Yeah, I think with Aiden O'Connell, it could have been, better just to stack him with one guy and just hope it works, like Devontae. This one, too, I was really capped. Like, this is a breakdown just so everybody knows how I think. But, like, I actually liked Palmer more than Johnston, but I knew, one, it'd be a lot higher ownership. But even besides the point, my problem really with this one was, like, there was nobody to come down on. I'm done with playing just the cheapest D possible to make it work. Like, that wasn't where I was going to go to do it. I didn't like any of the guys below Ertz, and Ertz worked as a run back for McCaffrey. If this, then maybe that. I really liked Ertz. He popped for me, so I was in on that. And he was kind of an opposite effect, because I liked Kittle, but I wasn't playing Purdy in this one with Purdy and CMC and Kittle or anything like that. So if I'm not playing Kittle, flip to the other side, because I am playing a different 49er, the guy that I thought was just the best 49er on the slate. Very obvious, and it came with ownership, but really thought he would have come with more, to be honest. We had tons of value to play with yesterday. I was surprised he didn't get even higher owned, but just to break this one down, to finalize it, there was nowhere else for me to go. Cheapest quarterback, two guys I wanted the most, the two guys together as a way just to pound them all into one lineup. I guess I could have come down on Myers to go up, but then I didn't want to run O'Connell, Adams with Palmer and Keenan, and I wanted Keenan in there too. So I picked my three guys. That's where I landed. It didn't do much more than that. Tyler, your thoughts on this, and then any final thoughts, anything else you want to talk about over at Line Star before I get us out of here?
Yeah, one of the things I would say is you absolutely could have, I think, dropped Myers out of this lineup. Just when you have the 4K quarterback, you don't need to go, way over stack or way over game stacking, even in a smaller tournament. And then you're pretty much getting all of Herbert's points had Johnston worked out. Because he's likely going to hyper target Keenan Allen. If Johnson goes off, you're getting all those points, or most of them, without playing Herbert. So I think it was a sharp build altogether. Just didn't get there, and that's what happens. You can't get there every single week.
Yeah, I really do like the Myers call quite a bit, though, because like you said, like the point you made on that is like, that's what I was trying to say is I didn't necessarily need that. And then I could have even had my Palmer side and I could have got to a guy like Nico Collins or somewhere in that range. It's results oriented. I'm just saying, like you said, you don't necessarily need to go. That was my takeaway, is the double stack might have been too aggressive. But I figure if he does have the type of day that we're hoping for, try and get it all into one spot versus just have him in one other. But in hindsight, I like the other way better. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, but hey, it's hindsight's always 2020, right? So
sure.
It's hard to do. But all in all, thanks for having me again today. Come check us out at Lion Star. We got a lot of good stuff going with us. The perfect lineup you can actually view, and all the history stuff you can view for free if you just want to come check out our site and the app. All that you can try out all your different viewpoints on past slates just to see what's working and what's not, and figure out the best way to attack the next slate.
Yeah, tons of stuff on there. You talked about it already, but like the props AI tool we mentioned, the matchups, the snaps, the red zone targets, all that stuff that you guys can find and go and check it out. We've mentioned it a couple of times, but if you haven't already, go to shipitnation.com/LineStar app. Go to LineStar. You can check it out, see everything they have over there, and see it there. Nades, final thoughts before we get out of here?
No. If you had a bad week, the week's not over yet. We got Monday Night Football. I think is it another Millie up top?
Yep.
I think tonight another Millie. That's great to see. Last year, I think they cut the Millies off after like the first 2 weeks, and even the Sunday night showdowns went down to like 250K. So it's nice that they're giving more love to the showdowns, because I love showdown personally. Showdown's my bread and butter. Obviously, when you hit for 60K, that definitely boosts the contest a little bit there. But definitely watch your show over on that Media Network, title and Hoop, breaking that down a little bit later on this afternoon. And you can make it all back tonight and then some, and end the week strong.
Yeah, we got it up here, so we'll share it one last time. So if you guys want to get in, I'll show you it again. But even just for showdown, we're going to have projections, ownership. We'll have the core report. We'll have the player pool. We'll have the slate plan. I'm not sure if I wiped it already. I might have. Yeah, I did. But just it's all up so you guys can see it. Nothing's there, but just to give you guys an idea of what you get, we'll have it all broken down. This is my slate plan. Core, secondary core, a FanDuel core. It talks about the game. I break down my captain's thoughts, ways that I'll be attacking the game, my sets. Give my whole. Last night, someone tagged it. If you go look on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at SHIPIT Nation, you could see it. All 6 of my guys in my King of the Beach winning lineup were in this captain's column. You just had to put them together the right way. So that's the one piece there. We've got the core report where we're going to have Hoop, myself, Nades, Title for Cash, all breaking down DK and FanDuel. We're going to have Hoop's player pool, where he's going to go break it down for you for this game with his top 6 captains, notes at captain, his exposures, everything there for his flex plays, all ranked out. And then if he has any fades or underweight plays at the bottom, the site has tutorials for every single page where you can just play the little video where I go through and break down how to use it all, ways that you would do it. And then lastly, the projections. These you can take and put down, bring your own CSV. Again, another thing, we have NFL projected ownership provided by LineStar. So another thing with this partnership here, but this is going to have it all broken down for you by slate. You'll be able to change it. You can download the CSV. You can do everything. This is the first one I went to, but just here, if I can get it to work, showdown projections so you guys can see. It's still brought to you by LineStar, but again, not going to give it all away here, but it's got the points per dollar, the ownership, the actual projection. You can download the CSV. You can do a ton with the stuff here. If you guys want to get in for as little as $19. Go to shipitnation.com/join. You'll see all of our options there. You can do $69 a month, $59 a month on the 6-month plan, as low as $49 a month if you sign up for the annual. So check that out. If you guys have any questions, you can hit me up on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at ToeTagginTambo. That's going to do it for this one, though, guys. For Nades, thanks again to Tyler for joining us. And for myself, ToeTagginTambo. Let's ship it!